Okay, yes, I know. Still no A Sign of Affection video, but that's gonna come. But in the meantime, another week, another reading log, another seven. I think it's seven this time. I'm looking at my pile. Another seven series that I read this week and that I want to talk about. And we're gonna go from smallest volume to largest because that is the easiest way to stack them. And that's the easiest way to read them from. So we're gonna start with volume one here. Well, it's actually a second volume, volume two of My Cute Little Kitten. I had to wait a year for this volume. Like the first volume came out, I want to say like maybe November 2022, and it is now January 2024, and we got the second volume. I mean, I'd like to show some of the stuff in here, but I gotta be careful because it's a very steamy Yuri romance. I mean, I think it's great because well, actually, funny enough, it's Milk Morinaga. It's the same author as Hana and Hina After School from last week's reading log. But this is their mature story. This is two working adults that are cohabiting right now and are kind of trying to work out their places in their relationship with one another, what it really is that they are to each other. I think it's really great. Reina and Yuka. Reina Yuka, I think, or maybe Yuka. Either way. The two of them are very, very close. They've been close since college, and they've really started expressing their feelings more strongly since they've moved into their own place. With their cat Chibi. I find it really interesting because this is probably Morinaga's strongest story in terms of symbolism and kind of efforts, and I think Yuka's character in here is very, very strong, very interesting and very appealing. Not in a super positive way, but it's very appealing because of her past. So she's struggled a lot with her identity and acceptance with the people around her for what they want out of her, rather than what she wants to be, I should say. So it becomes this really complicated thing where Reina is doing more and more with work and kind of leaving Yuka behind, and Yuka starts kind of spiraling downwards in her own mind and starts to doubt that what she is what Reina wants, and so she's trying to struggle and be the ideal that Reina wants in the relationship. And it creates this really interesting divide, and it's a really great emotional read with a lot of steamy stuff in it, but it's a respectful amount of steamy stuff. It is not very fetishized, which is really important to me because it just kind of feels weird when something is like, oh, we're making this for you, the reader, rather than, oh, this is a part of their relationship or it's an aspect that is core to the story. But it's the second volume. If you're a masochist, if you want to wait a year between volumes, maybe even more, I really can't recommend it enough as a adult romance story in general. So if you like pain, if you like waiting, you can definitely pick this up from Seven Seas, and I would say it's definitely worth it. On to the next. This has been a crazy favorite of mine, my special one. I have been absolutely suckered into it since the first volume. The idea of it's almost like a perfect rom-com. Like, you think about the perfect setting, the perfect characters, the perfect ideas, everything slots into place so effortlessly and so, like, it's so much fun. I mean, the art in here, you get so many little funny, silly pieces that just add so much to the humor of it that it just can't go wrong. It can't do anything wrong. I mean, so it's Sahoko and Kota are the two main characters. They're dating. One's an idol, one's a regular high school girl, that kind of beat. They went crazy enough that they got Kota the idol to come into Sahoko's school and pretend to be a teacher for a week so that he could learn for a video, like a TV show he was shooting or something. And I mean, just the ideas alone that stem from that are hilarious. The jealousy, the hiding the relationship, all of it is so, so fun. And it just adds yet another layer to how wonderful the relationship is with these characters. You are not stuck waiting for like hand holding or anything. No, these characters get like right to it and they're right in the mix, and it's just non-stop wonderful stuff. And they set up so much. So there's a model in this. Her name is Emma. She is friends with Sahoko now, but she's going after one of the other idols in Kota's group. And I think like just the way they're setting things up to kind of bring forward the idea of Sahoko and Kota's relationship becoming public, it's just so it's flawless. It's flawless. It's a great read, and I think it's a read that will appeal to absolutely anyone that picks it up. Because sure, the art isn't like probably the most detailed or creative, but I mean, when you get scenes like this, how are you supposed to say no, right? Like, that's just, it's hilarious and it's funny. And I mean, there's definitely moments for like the flirting and the jealousy, or like the pretty and kind of all of that kind of stuff. It's so, it puts a big smile on my face every time I read it. And I think that's more than enough reason for me to recommend it to anybody else out there. So 5 volumes deep. It's a regular Viz title. I mean, it's just, get it. Get it. And first on the stack of rereads, well, only on the stack of rereads for this week, I think, Chainsaw Man 14. I find it really, really interesting to read the physical volumes for series that you've read digitally. I've been reading Chainsaw Man Part 2 religiously every single week. Sometimes I post about it, sometimes I don't. But I think it's really, I mean, it's Chainsaw Man. What is there to say that hasn't been said at this point? But I think it's really interesting to kind of get a better grasp, I should probably say. A better grasp on some of the more specific content, like the date between Denji and Asa. I wanted to say Yoru so bad there, but it was Asa. My brain. Anyways, the date between Denji and Asa. I think it's really interesting to see how that dynamic tends to shift a bit in perspective when you're reading it all in one go, rather than week to week with breaks. Because it stops you from really like micro-analyzing basically, and kind of forces you to take a look at the bigger picture of how things go. And it definitely shows a bit more of a flow in terms of Fujimoto's writing. It's very, like, it's good as chapter by chapter, but I think volume by volume you get a much like larger picture in terms of what Fujimoto's trying to do. And I think that's really clear with Asa and Denji in this volume. I also think that it's interesting, let me see if I can find it, the go to hell argument between the pair in here. Here it is. Perfect. I think this stuff is very interesting because when it first came out, let's see if I get it focused. Is it focused? Sure, we'll call that focused. Anyways, the point is that it's hard to kind of illustrate the difference in what Fujimoto did in that panel in Japanese. So Asa has fewer go to hells in hers, but they're also bolded and they look kind of like neater. Let's see if I can show it again. See if I can get a good close-up. Focus for me. Nope. Anyways, the point is that Asa's go to hell looks visually different than Denji's, and the point behind that is the fact that it was actually written differently in Japanese because they have kanji versus hiragana and katakana and that kind of stuff. Anyways, the point is that Asa's was written with the kanji for like dai, while Denji's was just written in pure hiragana or katakana. I can't remember which, but the point was that it was supposed to illustrate the different levels of intelligence between the pair. And I think this still gets the point across rather well with the lettering here. I think it's the best you could expect to do with like the English language and being able to convey that visually. So, I mean, I can't complain. I think it's good. I mean, I think the volume tripping over my words there, is very good. I think it's fun. I think it ends at a very good point, actually. I didn't realize it would end there, and I think it's really great because it puts all of the important stuff into the next volume. I think volume 15 is going to be a really great physical reread because I loved a lot of the chapters in that sequence. I think being able to experience them all like in one consecutive go is going to be really, really great. I mean, yeah, it's Chainsaw Man. You don't need me to go buy it. It's popular. So, yeah. This one, though, probably could do with a bit more attention. Akane Banashi. For those that don't know, it's a story about a rakugoka, which sounds terribly pronounced in English, but I refuse to sound Japanese when I say it because it makes me sound snobby. Anyways, Akane, the main character, loves rakugo, which is like comedy theater, not like skit theater, maybe, is the easiest way to explain it. It's a one-man skit theater. It's a really great cultural tradition within Japan, and I think this is a really great read for anyone that's more interested in that sort of culture. But I think one of the most interesting things with this is that I can feel a lot more confidence in these last. So volume 1 and 2, I was a little like iffy. I thought there was a lot of great ideas. I thought it's super unique, lots of cool stuff, but I felt like there was a bit of wavering in terms of what the creators, there's two of them, the author and artist, wanted to do. Volumes 3 and 4 really rectify that, and I think 3 was an amazing read. I still think 4 is good, but I think 3 was better. But anyways, way off track. I think it's really great how confident it is to start further exploring the world of Rakugo instead of just the world of Akane in relation to Rakugo. I mean, it's a really weird thing to try and explain, but that delineation works great, and I love the kind of breadth and intersection they're starting to bring in with more contemporary cultures within Japan to that end. So, for example, in the last volume, there was a Rakugo that was also a voice actor for anime and other things and stuff like that. And they're doing a lot to really provide that intersection with modern culture in this more traditional one. And I think they do a great job of expressing that and showing that through all these characters in the volumes. I think it's really fun. And there's some things where you can just feel the spirit of Rakugo in it. Let me see if I can find the spread that I'm looking for, because you can just feel the kind of joy and passion expressed through those more typical appeals like this. Like, it's just, sure, it's a benign and silly panel, but you feel the passion and kind of, not freedom. I'm really struggling to find the right word to express it here. But there's just something about it that captures you in the way that it's supposed to. But to kind of double back, I think one of my biggest criticisms that remains is sort of their struggle with integrating the experience of Rakugo into a manga. It's a challenge because it's literally just a big monologue without any visuals most of the time. So it's hard to really fit into something that relies so heavily on visuals and a visual flow. I think there's a lot of spaces where they do well with that, but a lot where they struggle as well. So I think some of the visuals in Volume 3 were great, but I think they really struggle with extending that further. So there's some ways that they interact with the line art or like the appearance of certain things in Volume 3 that I think is amazing, but they sort of miss out on in volumes before and volumes after that, where they don't really change the line art too much. They don't really try to play too much with the overall presentation and kind of just go for a superimposition of things. But I think this is something that obviously has a lot of potential. I mean, shout out to my friend iPod for really pushing it, because I mean, he was a day one with this on digital, but I think Akane Banashi is really, let me say that one more time. I think Akane Banashi, there we go, is something that I think a lot of people will come around to very much once they start reading. But I think it's one of those things that it's hard to start reading because there's so much more that gets your attention out there first. So I think it's worth it. I think basically everyone should be picking this up at some point. Even digitally, I think it's on Manga Plus, my bad. All the stumbling today. But yeah, no, I think it's something that is a really great read. I think there's a lot of confidence in it, but I think it's just missing those last few steps to really take it to the next level. And I'm hoping to see those in future future volumes. Because, I mean, it's been a really steady improvement since the first volume. So, I'm hoping for great things. I'm also saying that you should get this. Alright. I'm going to do better with this one. I'm going to do better with Bocchi the Rock Volume 2. I think it's kind of fun how expressive the manga is. I think a lot of people have kind of bagged on the first volume because it's a 4-koma, and have really not kind of taken a deeper look into how much creative effort has gone into some of this work. So, like, let's see if I can get the biker guy in there. But anyways, basically the point is there's a lot of jokes that were translated from the manga to the anime. It wasn't the anime making up like 95% of its incredible humor. A lot of that is intrinsic to Bocchi the Rock itself. Like, it's a lot that the author does to really sell that humor. And I don't think they get enough credit for that on like social media. A lot of people really just kind of brush over that point and kind of, focus on the aspect of its format, like 4-koma. And I think a lot of series get discounted because of that nature. I mean, one of my favorite series, Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun, over on that shelf, over on this shelf, over on a shelf, it exists. And it is an incredibly fun read. And I can't recommend it enough. I can't recommend the adaptation from Doga Kobo enough. But that's besides the point. Anyways, new point. All the chapter cover references for Bocchi the Rock. This is basically the only one that I myself could pick out immediately because I love Bandmade. I'm a diehard Bandmade fan. And this is from their, well, let me point it. This is from their music video for Domination. I guess it's super cool seeing the depth of those references and how many you can find in all the various chapters. I mean, some of them go over my head, but I mean, huge shout out to Yen Press and their translator notes efforts. Like, there's like 4 pages of notes here for Bocchi the Rock. And I mean, it helps so much with understanding and really appreciating the references and humor within. And I mean, I totally get it. I think a lot of people can be afraid of 4 because it's like, what detail can they show? What efforts can they display? And I mean, I think calling Bocchi the Rock like a 4 manga can be a little misleading sometimes, because you'll have like this kind of stuff, these kind of panels. You'll have big full page illustrations sometimes. Like, there's a lot that can happen that really, like, not detracts, but really distracts you from the idea that it is a 4 Some of the panel sizes and stuff can change. You can get full page spreads of stuff in there. It's a lot more of an experience than some people will sell you on with 4 I think a lot of people take the idea of that restriction as an inability to be creative, but I think it's the inverse. I think that when you restrict yourself to something like this, you're forced into being more creative and more expressive because you have less tools at your disposal. That's a different conversation, though. This is about Bocchi the Rock, and this is a manga that I think, if you enjoyed the anime, you should 100% read it. Like, it's just kind of a no-brainer like that. I think if you haven't watched the anime, I don't know how you'll feel about it, because it is a 4 It's something that a lot of people stay away from typically, but I mean, if you want to give it a chance, give it a chance. If you're an anime fan, you're giving it a chance anyway, so get it. There's that. And here we go, Tokyo Babylon 2. I love Clamp covers and I love Clamp art. This kind of feels like a bit of a disservice to their creative style. I mean, you look at like Magic Knight Ray Earth. You look at the French editions of Magic Knight Ray Earth, and they are phenomenal. They express that like insane degree of detail and fantasy that Clamp expresses in their art with that cover. I think just plain covers with character art on them are kind of a bit of a waste for Clamp's potential, honestly. And you know, that's kind of funny. Speaking about the second volume, I think this second volume does a much better job at expressing Clamp's potential. I think volume 1 is kind of a little flip-floppy. It's kind of them just getting it out there and getting it over with, which is interesting because I felt that X was a lot stronger in that regard right off the bat. But the second volume of Tokyo Babylon is really, really great. I think it starts to like more deeply express the themes that Clamp is looking at here, which is basically exclusively through the lens of women's experiences in Tokyo, is the fact that a city does have a life of its own, but that life has nothing to do with you. That life will kick you, it will shut you out, it will spit on you, it will do anything because it does not recognize that you are there. It is up to the individuals to recognize your life and your existence. The group, the collective, society as a whole will never really understand or appreciate you for the person that exists within. I mean, I think that's a really, really great sentiment, and they express it really, really well and creatively within. Like some of the stuff, like they have a whole chapter based on the perception and experiences of foreigners in Japan. And I mean, for being a manga from the 90s, I believe, I think that's a really impressive thing to display. But I mean, Clamp and some of the other artists like the Year 84 group, they have always been years and years ahead of the curve on what manga does. But I mean, it's still impressive and very, very nice to see that sort of thing expressed within these pages. But let me talk about the art. I think the art was kind of, like, it's always good. I mean, their character designs are phenomenal. I love it. I think Volume 1 was kind of missing something, like just something in terms of a loose idea. Volume 2 fixes that by really putting a heavy focus on shadows and like kind of superimposing that idea within the expressions of the mysteries. Well, can you call them mysteries? With the stories of the characters, I should say. They use the shadows and that sort of thing to really express something deeper than the self. And I think it goes over very, very well. I think there's a lot that's really great about it. So let me take this example. This page. There's the bird in the shadow, which becomes his bird that he sends off to Subaru. And I think it's a really interesting idea in terms of how you view the idea of freedom, control, watching over someone, and that kind of, like, there's a lot a lot that can be done with just the idea of a bird and a shadow being expressed here. I think it really shows how, not unrivaled, but how impressive Clamp was during their era. They were really basically unmatched in terms of what they could do and what they chose to do. And I mean, that's very clearly expressed within these pages. Also, I forgot to show it, but like this super weird kind of fold out poster. I can't see anything, so I'm hoping I'm doing it right, but it's a two-way poster. So you have Subaru isolated on his own without his sister and shoot, what's his name? The assassin dude. But yeah, I think it's really weird because the whole point is that you want the poster to be like one thing to one side, but this is very obviously like a single image in two parts, because you look at that and it's like, I don't know. But anyways, a bit disappointing of a format for a like Clamp Premium Collection, as it says that way. But I mean, it's still Clamp. It's still worth it if you're a fan. And it's still a really great experience for a classic manga, I think. So pick it up. Yen Press actually has this volume, I think, 25% off on their website. So if you can't find it on sale elsewhere, Yen Press is the best place to go for that. But they have a free shipping minimum, so be aware. Anyways, last volume. God, I've been stumbling over my words today. Got too much on the mind. Anyways, last one. Yono-sama Fanatics. This is interesting because I picked this volume up like 6 months ago or something crazy. It was a part of a lot that I had other volumes that I wanted in it. And I never really had interest in the series, or like, not in the series, in this volume until I started, like, I actually read it. I just thought it was interesting because it's from Infinity Studios, who is basically only published this in like 2, maybe 3 other titles in their lineup before they went defunct. And I think that's really interesting. And I think another interesting aspect is just how good this volume is in terms of build quality. It is thick. Like, this is old, and it's still got like premium, like wonderfully white, smooth coated paper. It's got the dust cover, the French flaps. It's got illustrations and stuff on the front cover itself, like you see on some French edition manga. It's got color pages, not just at the front, but in the middle, like this. Like, it's impressive, and it's all for the MSRP of $10.95 US, which, when adjusted for inflation, is about the same price as this Clamp Premium Collection volume, which is $15. So there's like a $4 price difference between the two volumes. Without inflation, and like maybe 50 cents with. I mean, the difference in quality, the difference in quality is night and day. But anyways, let's talk about the actual content of the volume. I think it's fun. I think it's silly. I think it is a like nostalgic 2000s manga, absolutely through and through. It's got the silliness, it's got the chibi vibes, it's got like the excessive, original, weird fantasy story where everything just kind of falls into place and is episodic, kind of. It's just one of those things that's super interesting in that regard. Like, I wouldn't say it's a great story. I think it's kind of fun as it bounces around between romance and humor. But I wouldn't say it's like outstanding. Anyways, the idea is Yono is a queen of a foreign country that is kind of like France. They use French in the volume in a few places. But anyways, she basically has a concubine, or as she calls them, Sobame, I believe. Yeah, Sobame. Anyways, the whole idea is that she's just got a bunch of women that she's in love with around her as like her attendants and her staff and whatnot. And the main character, quote unquote, Eto, I believe, Ito, I don't know the right way to pronounce it because I literally just read this yesterday. But Eto is the most recent addition to her concubine, and she is kind of touted as the klutz, the kind of clumsy girl that can't do anything right. And it's kind of framed interestingly against all of the girls that are very capable and able that exist in Yono's concubine already. It's surprisingly creative in that sense. I think it lacks a lot of weight, but the value that comes from the words is actually surprisingly good. So I mean, if you can find it, which I took a quick look on Amazon today, and you can still find it for used with like reasonable prices. But I mean, you can also probably read it digitally perfectly fine. I think if you're just looking to scratch the itch for something old and classic, like you want to remember your childhood reading manga or whatever, I think it's very fun. I think it's very, very fun. It's definitely not for everyone, but I think for people that are looking for that one specific thing, I think I'll definitely check it off your list. So there it is. I struggled, I stumbled. I keep thinking about 12 different things, but it's done. I'm promising that hopefully by the next time that there's a reading log episode, I'll have a video out on A Sign of Affection. I'm just a masochist and keep rewriting the script and keep adding new ideas and changing things around and trying to cut down on time. So we'll see where it goes. Although maybe with, well, actually no, I want to get it out before the Super Bowl in February. So before February 11th, you're going to see the video. I promise. But until then, I guess this is going to have to do. All right, I'll see you guys next week.